Now, if you hear some big bangs over Portsmouth on the 28th of October, don't panic. It's most likely to be Fort Nelson's mighty mortars lighting up the sky. The historic fort is taking part in the Museums at Night Festival and will open its doors for night owls to discover what Victorian garrison life would have been like, and of course to get a feel for the powerful arsenal there. Our reporter Nicole Rees had a look down the barrel of the impressive weapon to find out more.
It's going to be a journey after dark when visitors are invited to experience these eerie tunnels and stand in the first row when Fort Nelson gets out its big guns to light some fire.
We will be demonstrating the firing through our uniformed Palmerston Fort Society detachment, a 13-inch land service mortar. It plays an important part of the defence of these land-based forts on Portsdown Hill, and here at Fort Nelson we are in the North Mortar Battery where the demonstration will take place, and was used to disrupt any enemy activity out in the fields beyond.
Together with its base, one of these mortars weighs 4.5 tons, and at least 4 strong men were needed to move it for firing. Placed beneath the ramparts of the fort, the guns were meant to be used for secondary defence.
All the forts on Portsdown Hill were constructed sufficiently close enough to provide covering fire. But of course here at Fort Nelson, as in the other forts, we had the larger guns up on the ramparts, and down here in the mortar batteries, a series of these 13-inch land service mortars to carry the fight to the enemy. If it was viewed, for example, that the enemy were starting to dig themselves in to create a point from which they could launch a serious assault, we might decide to bring in these mortars, which could fire a fairly heavy and substantial bomb, as we call it, into those works. Or alternatively, if we see some men coming up the field towards the fort, depending on how we arrange the fuse in the bomb, we could explode that above their heads and use the shrapnel to disrupt that effort.
At the event on the 28th of October, these particular mortars will only be fired with explosive charge. They were declared obsolete by the time the fort was finished in 1870.
By then, a newer, much lighter gun had been developed called a 6.6-inch howitzer, and that could be emplaced on the ramparts above us. So these mortar batteries are effectively obsolete, and as far as we know, these mortars never were emplaced here at Fort Nelson. And in any case, they discovered at an earlier period that firing these weapons with a full service charge of 9 pounds of gunpowder actually reverberated the brickwork and the vaults around us, causing serious structural damage. So it's probably just as well they came up with a newer, lighter gun.
Nicole Rees, for That's Solent.